Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to AI-powered coaching bots, a new path to financial wellness. I'm Pat Shea. I'm the editor of Mobile Payments Today, and I'll introduce our speakers in just a moment. First, I'd like to remind everyone to stay for the entire presentation, because at the end, you'll be able to submit a question to our speakers. Today's webinars will discuss how GreenPath, a leading nonprofit financial counseling organization, and eGain, a digital customer engagement technology company, is launching an innovative virtual financial coach using award-winning AI and digital engagement technology. In this webinar, GreenPath and eGain experts will discuss the financial state of consumers and the market opportunity for providing them with financial advice. They will also highlight methods for deploying AI-powered financial resources. The state-of-the-art AI-powered virtual financial coach shares friendly financial guidance from GreenPath based on the customer's interests and financial priorities. Customers get bite-sized action steps and motivational nudges to encourage progress toward their financial goals. Our speakers today are Rick Bilobreski, Executive Vice President at GreenPath Financial Wellness, and Evan Siegel, Vice President of Financial Services for AI at eGain. Rick heads up strategic partnerships at GreenPath with a focus on developing collaborations that are win-win-win. Good for the clients, good for the partners, good for the company. He works to maximize GreenPath's reach to connect more people with the support they need for their financial wellness journey. Rick has been on GreenPath's executive team for the past 25 years. At eGain, Evan extends the company's award-winning AI, knowledge and management, and customer engagement technologies from customer service to the sales domain. Previously at Wells Fargo, he led an initiative to provide financial guidance to the bank's customers. Now he's helping companies leverage eGain technology to enhance customer experience and improve the bottom line. And with that, I'll turn the event over to Evan Siegel.
Hi, Pat. Thanks, everyone, for joining. And thanks, Pat, for that introduction. Here you can see, so you know who's speaking, some photos of us. And we really appreciate you coming and joining. So I'm going to turn over to Rick now, who's going to tell you a little bit more detail what you'll hear and launch into the content. Hi, Rick. Over to you.
Hey, thanks, Evan. Yeah, so today we're going to touch on why your customers need financial advice and why it's challenging to give them that advice. I'll talk about what we at GreenPath have learned over the years about engaging people and in financial advice and actually changing behavior. Evan will introduce you to the virtual financial coach, which uses eGain's chatbot technology to deliver our advice. And then we'll wrap it up with a quick look at both companies. So let me begin by saying that really your customers need financial advice. They really do. And, you know, most of us have seen stats like this, stats about rising student loan debt, 40 to 50% of people not being able to pay an unexpected $400 expense. There are a ton of these kind of stats out there. So it's really not surprising that a significant number of people are just getting by with their finances. The National Credit Union Foundation and the Financial Health Network recently found that about 60% of people are struggling financially. And actually the person at the Financial Health Network who led this research told me last week that number is up to 64% more recently. And they found that 75% of people are unsatisfied with their current financial situation. You know, and aside from the numbers, there are a ton of people who are stressed about their finances. You know, a recent Harris poll found that 72% of Americans said they felt stressed about money at least once during the past month. All this can be an opportunity for businesses if you're willing to go there. Some of your customers could use help with retirement planning and investing. That's normally how people traditionally think about financial service or financial advice. But so many others need advice on day-to-day issues like improving credit, reducing debt, improving cash flow, buying a home, things like that. And we're not just talking about lower income populations or people living paycheck to paycheck. You know, let's talk about millennials. They have a spending power estimated at $3.5 trillion. And most businesses are trying to attract this type of younger customer. Well, this group also has some issues with their personal finances. They have lots of student loan debt, and surprisingly, nearly 11% of that debt is over 90 days past due. So, all is not well with the student loan debt. Only about 43% of millennials are homeowners, and the average net worth of a millennial is far less than Gen X was at the same age. There was a recent survey I saw in Inc. magazine where they said that 89% of millennials who don't currently own a home would like to buy one, but only 4% thought they could afford to buy one within the next year, which just blew me away. I mean, what if you could find a way to play a role in helping these people pay down debt, buy a home and build wealth? They would be loyal for life.
So let's take a look at sort of how banks and financial institutions are doing at meeting this need that Rick laid out. So let's start with the channel where most often customers go, channels where customers go to figure out next best product or next best action, the branch and the contact centers. And again, in my experience, the points on here come from both my experience at a major bank as well as research I've done since joining eGain. And let's understand that, look, financial products are complex. That's the current situation and why it's optimally being handled in the channels. Typically, those that are in the branch and contact center customer-facing roles, those tend to be more entry level and have very high turnover, and that's pretty standard across the industry. And I think most of you would agree that the incentives for those frontline team members do not necessarily align towards long-term financial wellness and providing long-term gains. The net impact of all that is you see sort of two primary models that emerge. It's either the order taker, where the team member, a customer walks in, they say, hey, I want a deposit product, or I want such and such a loan. If the customer is not quite sure, they might show them a placemat that sort of lays out the features of the products, and the customer will then have to figure out, and basically what the banker does is take the application. Another, if a lot of banks are investing money in systems to help the bankers, the net impact of that is you end up with the product pusher model, where one of three things happen. Either a lot of banks have next best offer, those get presented to a banker, and the banker will just present that. Not necessarily, it's sort of sometimes presented out of context. Rarely a question asked of the customer to make sure the offer presented makes sense for the customer. Another model in the product pusher is you push the promotion, whatever is sort of a special du jour. Again, oftentimes no needs assessment done prior to that. Or another thing that's very common is, especially if there's a high turnover and it's a less seasoned banker, it's whatever that banker feels comfortable selling. If it's bill pay or a certain credit card, again, almost regardless of the situation, that's what they'll offer. Well, that's not going to solve the situation that Rick explained, where you've got folks really struggling. And this is just about products, let alone the advice and guidance folks need to get their financial house in order. Let's go next to the digital channel. It's where people are moving in this COVID era. Folks are going to the digital channel, self-serving. In our opinion, it's no better. It is, in general, if you look across almost any bank or credit union, you'll see a mix of what's depicted on here. Either you'll see lots of long articles. I've got a couple examples there. And or some sort of bare bones self-service tools. The net impact of this is folks who are struggling need to be motivated, disciplined, and knowledgeable enough to wade through all this. In our opinion, that doesn't happen, and it's not just our opinion. There's been some studies done, mentioned on the bottom of the page here, that basically highlight that this type of education does not drive the behavior change that's needed for folks to improve their financial wellness. So human channels aren't working, digital channels aren't working. So we've sort of collectively looked at what type of advice works best, and I'll turn over to Rick to walk through that.
Thanks, Evan. Yeah, GreenPath has been counseling people on their finances since 1961. So for 60 years, we've learned quite a bit along the way about engaging with people and helping them actually change behavior. Before I get into any of these points, I wanted to make the point that people don't know who to trust about financial issues. They're skeptical, and with good reason, because most of the financial relief stuff they see on TV is sketchy. Often it's predatory. There are a lot of scams out there. But you already have a relationship of some kind with your customers, and there's a level of trust there. The reality is, if your customers don't get advice from you, who are they going to get it from? Someone in the family, one of your competitors, worse yet, a credit repair company, a debt settlement company. If you don't provide advice for your customers, they're going to get it somewhere else. So, let's talk a little bit about like when people are open. Evan, if you want to flip a slide, yeah. When people are open to this idea of seeking advice, we're all familiar with the concept of teachable moments. There are times when people are motivated and willing to learn something new. Well, we've learned that there are coachable moments when people are motivated to seek help with their finances and they're willing to make changes to move forward. Typically, these coachable moments come from an event of some kind. Common events are they're getting collection calls, they get turned down for a loan, they're overdrafting their accounts, they're maxing out their accounts. Sometimes it's just they're stressed out and they decide one day enough is enough. I'm tired of worrying about my finances and having this hanging over my head. Or maybe it's a bigger event in their life. They lose a job, they have a health issue and now medical bills. They recently got divorced. There's some trigger that leads them to say, okay, now I'm willing to get help. I'm ready. What do I need to do? The challenge for us is to let people know we're here for them and to catch their attention at these times when they need us the most. And so if you get somebody who is willing, to take a look at their finances, getting them engaged and keeping them engaged, can be difficult. So when people are unsure and they're just checking out their options, they often want to be anonymous. They want to go out there, surf the web, see what information they can find. With traditional phone-based financial counseling like GreenPath has been delivering all these years, we can promise confidentiality, which is also important, but we can't let them be anonymous. They have to give us some information in order to talk to us, and we need to know about their financial situation to give them, advice that's meaningful to them. We've tried to bake this into the virtual financial coach. That's one thing we can't do today with traditional counseling. We can let them be anonymous with the coach. And of course, confidentiality, that goes without saying, that's the case too. People we've found over the years will absolutely tell us things that they won't tell their bank or their credit union or their insurance company or whoever it is that they're dealing with. They trust this third party, this anonymous, this nonprofit, somebody who's talking to them. And I don't know exactly why, but there is a level of trust that we have that their primary relationships with our other financial institutions, it's just not there. We also know it's important to reduce friction, and make it as easy as possible to work with us. At GreenPath, over the years, we've tried to be there when people need us, but we're not 24/7. We're open till 10 Eastern during the week. We have weekend hours, but we know we're still not reaching enough people. Some people are never ever going to pick up the phone and ask for help with their finances. It's just a bridge too far. They're too proud, they're too embarrassed, whatever it is. So what the virtual financial coach enables us to do is reach those people who, want to talk at 11 p.m. On the West Coast. It's 24/7, totally anonymous. They don't have to pick up the phone. They can get information and feedback on their time when they want. And I think, we've learned that you have to make a personal connection with people pretty quickly. Financial advice cannot be cookie cutter. It has to be customized. It has to be based on each person's specific situation. It has to be delivered with empathy. People need to know you really care. And it has to be without judgment. One of the biggest reasons people don't reach out for help, they tell us later, is we're afraid of being judged. People don't want to be told, well, you screwed up. They don't want to be judged. So we have tried to bake all these critical approaches into the virtual financial coach. And, people, getting them engaged and keeping them engaged is hard enough, but actually helping them change behavior, that is extremely challenging. People want to improve their finances, just like a lot of people want to lose weight. Wanting it is one thing, making it happen is something totally different. So GreenPath has a full-time behavioral scientist on staff. We continue to build on what we're learning. And a couple of things here I wanted to point out that we have learned. So we know that if you give people a list of things to do, there's a good chance they're not going to do anything. If it seems too overwhelming, if the hill seems too steep, they're not going to even start. So what we have learned is we need to focus on one action step at a time, look for quick wins to build confidence early on. And that, again, we've built into the coach. Also, we found that telling people what to do usually doesn't work out very well. They don't own it. They're not committed to the behavior change. So instead, we try and give people information, answer questions, empower them to make their own informed decisions. We can offer our opinion. We certainly do give them pros and cons of their different options, but buy-in and follow through is going to be much stronger if we let them decide on a course of action. And then, once people have a plan, we need to get them to commit to it. A simple act of signing a pledge that says, I'm going to be debt-free by this date, or putting their name on an action plan with due dates and having them sign that. It's a simple act, but it has proven to be helpful significantly in increasing follow-through. And in some cases, we also use defaults. If someone establishes a goal, we can use a default to help them move forward and make it easier with less friction. For example, if somebody's paying down debt on a debt management program with us, we default to automatic ACH withdrawals, which eliminates the need to initiate a deposit. It just happens. We align deposits with our paychecks to reduce the friction of coming up short on money during the month. We tell them that people who successfully increase their credit score do the following things. They're guardrails, and they can be helpful in helping people move forward. And, savvy companies know that financial advice can help them gain a competitive advantage. It's not easy, but it can help them grow wallet share and improve customer satisfaction. Just wanted to point to a couple of white papers that came out last year. Forrester and Accenture both came out with these studies that were focused on how helping people improve their financial well-being is good for the bottom line. Just a couple of key points. Forrester says that it's how you build trust. It's how you make relationships last. They say it's the only sustainable competitive advantage that's left. And Accenture goes so far as to say that delivering quality advice actually increases revenue by 5%. There are a lot of banks and other financial institutions taking a long, hard look at using technology to deliver financial guidance. They're finding that they don't have to do it the traditional way with talking to somebody on the phone all the time. I mean, that's certainly necessary for some situations, but they're using artificial intelligence to gain an edge, which, Evan, I think that's a nice segue back over to you to talk about the coach.
Okay, great. Thanks, Rick. So hopefully you got you excited about how we've combined forces here and captured all those insights from GreenPath's 60 years of coaching to build a virtual coach. But before we go there, there's one last question, one last lingering question you all may have, which is, will my customers use a virtual coach? Fortunately, the IT Group, which is a survey research firm, recently surveyed over 2,400 consumers and asked that very question. And as you can see here, overwhelming response that yes, consumers are very open to being coached by a virtual coach. There's two reasons why we believe. One is exactly what Rick covered. People are struggling, and when you're struggling, you'll take help. The second piece also Rick touched on, but just to highlight it, there's some embarrassment and desire for anonymity when you're getting coached. And so the fact that a virtual coach is the ultimate anonymity in that it's a bot, we believe is sort of what gets you over the top to sort of be open to that virtual coach. So let's tell you a little bit about this virtual coach that we've created. I'm going to work you through this page from left to right. On the left-hand side is a picture of it. You're going to get a demo here in a few minutes, a short demo. But it is an app-like experience that does not require you to download an app. When designing this, we were really conscious to make as little friction as possible in the experience. And even that step of having to go to an app store and download an app, that's friction. And so it's launched from a link that is, or an offer that's on any digital property or in any communication that your institution sends out. It works on any device. Here it's shown on a smartphone. It also works on a laptop or a tablet. And I'll tell you more about eGain in a second, later on in this webinar, but we've been in the business, the headline is we've been in the business of AI and machine learning for over 20 years. And the way we sort of harvest that and focus that into the virtual coach is it delivers a highly personalized conversation with the consumer who's being coached. We combine that with GreenPath's advice. And so through the questioning, we figure out what the consumer wants to focus on. And then we use all of that great GreenPath advice, best practiced and honed over 60 years to help the consumers. The experience is broken down into two parts. There's the first part where it's that conversation, like you would in an initial conversation with a real life coach. You're trying to figure out, well, what are you trying to achieve and what's your action plan? The second part, and what really differentiates this from, we believe, anything else on the market, is the second part where the coach stays with the consumer on their journey. eGain's technology enables messaging on pretty much any channel: Facebook, SMS messages, WhatsApp, dozens of others. And so the consumer picks what channel they want to be coached on and nudged on, and then they will get personalized behavioral nudges that are gamified. So what does that look like? And Mike, we'll get in our demo, we'll show you a screenshot of what it looks like, but just to describe it with a picture with words. Let's say the customer's action plan, the first step calls for them to pull their credit report. The behavioral nudge that they would get a couple of days after completing their action plan would be, hey Evan, were you able to complete the first step in your action plan, pulling your credit? I would text back yes or no, so it's a two-way experience. If I said yes, lots of confetti and congratulations and a reminder of what the second action step was that I'm supposed to go take. If I say no, again, getting back to that idea of reducing friction, the coach would push the link to my free credit report and, hey, no time like the present to pull your credit report. So the behavioral nudges are designed to motivate and encourage progress. Take this all together, what we believe we created, and hopefully you'll see through the demo, is an engageable, scalable, quality solution. A super important point to make is it is compliant. In the intro, you heard that I was previously at a large bank. At that bank, I set up a team of financial health bankers, and it was always a struggle about, well, gosh, a human can go off script. They can get into dicey territory, and that sort of guidance space is very fraught. The beautiful thing about a virtual coach is it never goes off script. And all the guidance that's included here has been vetted by GreenPath's team of compliance officers. So that's what makes it 100% compliant. And it's 100% turnkey, and I'll talk more about that later on. So, the net result is you get a digital low-cost solution That's going to increase the balances and cross-sell, improve your net promoter score, all that goodness you get by helping people improve their financial wellness. Greg will talk more about GreenPath in the back end and go much deeper on this. I just want to make the point that one other thing that's an option with the virtual coach is for those consumers, some will still want an additional help. You know, they'll get an action plan. They're not quite sure they can achieve it. One of the options that is included in the virtual coach is those consumers will be presented with a phone number, actually call and speak to a GreenPath counselor. And so there, you know, it's sort of the best of both worlds. You get virtual for the 90% of people that the bot will help. And for those that need a little bit of extra help, they get a no-cost counseling session with the GreenPath counselor. So I'd mentioned on the last page that this is a 100% turnkey solution, and we really mean that. There's no system integration. Everything that the coach needs to give guidance to the consumer, it gets via its Q&A with the consumer. You know, this is digital. You don't need to change. A lot of technology solutions require your team members to do something different. This is a fully contained solution. As I mentioned, it's all GreenPath advice, so your team doesn't need to create any content. It comes with all the reports you need. Literally all your organization needs to do, and we're in the middle of this right now. We're launching a bunch of banks and credit unions, and what they're doing is they're providing a logo, because that's a branded experience. The first thing a consumer sees is a splash screen of your organization's brand, so they know who supported it. You need to post the link, so customers, when they get those trigger events like Rick talked about, they know to engage, and then you need to promote it. That's it. And so, you know, what we're finding is this is being bubbled to the top of the implementation queue because IT doesn't need to get involved. And as you all know, as many of you, I saw the pre-registration list, many of you are business leaders. As you know, IT is limited bandwidth because they're so jammed with other projects. Often side rails your change initiatives. Well, here's one where IT will not be a roadblock because they're not needed for implementation. So, you know, we've been working on this for a while. GreenPath's been doing it for 60 years. eGain also spent a long time, over a year, really researching what makes a great virtual coach. And what we learned, but in that research, we looked at real coaches like personal trainers. We looked at, there's a lot of apps out there in the diet, nutrition, and physical health realm. And we pulled out some key learnings. I'll highlight a couple here. The first one in the first row on the table is that, you know, you need to gel with the personality and style of your coach. And so shortly on our roadmap, we will be adding these personas. Right now, when you see the demo, what we have in the marketplace is the traditional persona. It is a mix of all the others. But coming very shortly is this choice the consumer will make very early in their journey of, well, which personality best fits mine? There's tough love, which is the, you know, picture of the drill sergeant, sets super high expectations, is very disappointing when you don't do what you're supposed to do. Again, you get the picture. On the other end of the extreme is the cheerleader. Exudes tons of positivity, very encouraging of every bit of progress. Then the third one to highlight is fun and games, which over-indexes on gamification. And so here, again, it gives the consumer, the user, a chance to pick and change, if they want later on, a persona that gels with their personality. Another thing that's really critical for a great coaching experience is the advice needs to be tailored to your situation. And so, you know, that's where the eGain AI and conversation comes in to really make sure that it's a personalized experience. Next one should not be a surprise to anyone on this call. The advice needs to be understandable, and that can be hard in the financial services sector. There's a lot of jargon, and so with the combination of GreenPath's experience plus our development process that has tons of focus groups and feedback, we believe we've done a really good job of delivering guidance that's in plain English. Also, you know, we don't want to overwhelm the consumer, so the advice is very bite-sized, no more than 3 bullet points. Follow-up and accountability, we talked about that with those behavioral nudges. And then, the empathy is something that Rick talked about that GreenPath specializes in, and that's really, it's baked in sort of through all the guiding and guidance and that we're provided to the consumer. So hopefully we've really whet your appetite to see this virtual coach. And so now that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to give you a short demo to see the virtual coach live and in action. So Mike Kuiper, who's on the eGain team, who works with our banks and credit unions that are implementing this, as well as works with GreenPath to develop the advice flows, will now take you through a brief demonstration.
All right, thank you, Evan. I'll go ahead and here and share my screen. And just want to confirm that you're seeing the cell phone.
Yes, we are.
Perfect. All right, so we'll go ahead here and launch the coach. And you'll notice right away that the UI is very clean, very uncluttered. The coach, Leah, introduces herself here, and she's a very pragmatic and empathetic coach. And first thing she's going to want to know is the names. Our user is Taylor, someone who's maybe had a little bit of trouble with credit cards, now is looking for opportunities to improve her credit in order to eventually buy a house, and was really unsure what the status of her credit was, how to improve it. What the coach does is really focuses Taylor in this case on the three main areas, the three biggest areas that can have the biggest effect on credit, which is ensuring that you're paying your bills on time, also making sure that your credit reports are accurate, and then finally using the credit that you may already have effectively. So we have a lot of active choice throughout the coach. Every user can go on their own journey. They can learn about all three of these factors. They can choose one or two of the factors to learn about, or they can say, you know what, I already know what my issue is, help me fix it. We have a lot of options there, a lot of active choice. So for Taylor, she's going to say, you know what, I kind of understand paying my bills on time. I feel like my credit report's pretty good, but I want to talk a little bit about how I use my credit. So she's going to, now you can see the multiple choice there. She can go down different paths, multiple different paths, but she's just to keep it simple, say, tell me the impact of using my credit cards, because I do have credit cards now, and I feel like that could be my issue. So we let her know that's a credit utilization, and she says, yes. Tell me how that affects my score. And now we introduce the concept of the targeting of 30% or less of your credit limit. Very common best practice when it comes to improving coaching, but also an area that's very understood by a lot of consumers. We also have knowledge check throughout the coach, knowledge checks. This allows some of the early, a little bit of gamification, allows the user to get a quick win on the board, which we're going to demonstrate here for Taylor. It also allows Coach Leah to reinforce the one key factor of the learning that the user just went through. Before I answer that, I'm going to highlight here, you'll notice how in a short amount of time, we're able to get a lot of information there out and a lot of teaching. And so that's been one of the great things that have come from focus groups early with the coaches. We had many users that shared, I learned a lot of information. This small bite-sized advice you're giving me is perfect. And if I had seen this in a long article on the internet, I wouldn't have read it, or if it came in my email, but having it in this format, it really allows me to learn, which is exactly what we want to go with here with the coach. So go ahead and have Taylor answer this one correctly, 30%. Give a little nice work there. All right, so now Taylor's went down one path, credit utilization. Now she can decide, okay, I want to improve my bill payment strategies and or my lower credit utilization strategies and or review my credit reports and maybe potentially dispute things. Taylor's going to say, you know what, I want to just learn about lowering my credit utilization strategies. And even within this bucket, you'll see there's more active choice. So does she want to first understand about her credit cards? Does she want tips? She knows she's high. Does she want to lower them? These are all and or, so she go down multiple paths. Or does she want to calculate her credit utilization? And for Taylor, she's going to say, you know, I feel like I do overuse my credit cards. I'm not sure what that number is. So what we're going to have her do here is grab her most frequently used or highest credit card, grab the balance, the statement, if she doesn't know the numbers, and then we're first going to start with her limit, which is going to be $10,000. And then next, her balance. So she grabs her balance. Let's do $7,465. So she's at 74% utilization. We're going to remind her about the 30% goal, but then Coach Leah is going to put in actual numbers, which is saying, you need to reduce your balance over time by $4,465 with your targeted balance of $3,000. That will be the sweet spot. Any movement lower that will help her improve her credit. Now, throughout the coach, we have areas where we're testing the success rate of the user. How confident are they can be successful? Do they want some more tips? Are they feeling good? And in these places, we also have an option, sure, I need more than tips. And that's when we can introduce GreenPath. So this is Taylor, someone that maybe wasn't quite aware of GreenPath, that there's a partnership available there, or maybe wouldn't have called GreenPath. But at this point, Taylor now has kind of raised her hand and said, I need help. Let me talk to someone. And so it's a real win for Taylor because she's going to an expert that matches her situation, which is high credit utilization. It's a win for GreenPath because they're getting someone else that they can talk to and really give that great advice. And so we have a few spots there where we just want to nudge and make sure that the user's confident. If they're confident, let's go keep on going with the plan. If not, let's bring someone else in here to add that next level of advice. We have the summary here. Now, Taylor just went one path, so she has one bullet. If she had went down her bill payment path, she'd have bullets on that as well. We always end with, do they feel the plan is realistic? Taylor's going to say, yep, yes, I do. Now that I've talked to someone, I'm feeling good. And then we are going to send a customized summary, which I'll show you here in just a minute, to her email. So I'm going to go ahead and put my own email in here. And I'll get that summary here in just a minute. I'll show it to you what it looks like. And then finally, we finish with encouragement of a winning plan and ask for some feedback. So we are seeing some great results in the users' confidence in being successful, over 80%. So we're really feeling like those that go through it are feeling really confident that they will be successful, which is great. So I am going to quickly show you two things. First, this is the plan that I would receive, Taylor would receive via email, just summarizing everything we just told her with a few more information, kind of expanding out on that plan. I like to show, this is our database of plans. So for example, if someone had done fixed credit errors on the report, they get the information to have prepared as well as links directly to the dispute pages. One of our testers that used the coach recently, when testing it, actually ordered the reports as a result of the coach telling them to, and found errors and successfully disputed errors on the report using these exact links in this process. And then lastly, I'll just show you some mock-ups for the nudges. So if Taylor had said, I want to order my credit reports, we'll check in a couple days later. Did you have a chance to get it? No. Okay, well, here's the link again. Or did you have a chance to get it? Yes. Okay, here's a link to an area you may need to dispute based on information that Taylor had given us previously of what report she was looking at. So with that, that is the demo. I am now going to hand it back to Evan for the rest of the presentation.
All right, thanks, Mike. Let me just get a confirmation from someone, Mike or Rick. You can see the screen.
Yep, you're good.
All right. So you might be, hopefully you're excited and you're like, well, gosh, that looked great. How might I use this? What are the great use cases for my customers to engage with the coach? There's a number. One that's really strong is getting credit ready. Let's picture a young couple, that millennial couple that Rick was talking about, wanting to buy a house. They'd want the best credit possible so they can get the best mortgage. Or anyone trying to get ready to apply for a credit product. Another tremendous use case where it's really easy to calculate the value delivered is post-credit decline. If you ever want to get me started, get me talking about the post-credit decline experience, I actually believe that is one of the worst experiences in the banking industry. A lot of times people are encouraged to apply. Sometimes, depending on the product, especially for home lending products, it's very time intensive. And then, the best you often see is maybe a phone number to a credit bureau as the support you give these declined folks. Well, the coach will nurture those consumers, get them ready, and then at the right moment, send them back to your institution to go ahead and reapply for that credit product. There's a whole bucket around find the money. What Mike showed you today in the demo was the credit sort of building flow. We also have what we broadly call find the money flow. that helps consumers sort of adjust their spending to find that extra whatever they want, 20 to a couple $100 a month, to put toward a down payment, to put toward a long-term goal like retirement or putting their kids through college, or to make a purchase with cash instead of credit. Sort of different angle, but with a similar advice, is pay down debt. Getting at that student debt, $1.5 trillion of student debt. Coach Leah can help folks with that as well. And then finally, for those of you that might have friends in the collections department or risk departments, anytime people are in collections or getting delinquent on their payments, a virtual coach can work with them to sort of find the money to pay down and get back on time. The way you engage with the coach, a couple examples on the right-hand side of the page. It's just like a chatbot. So one option is it can be proactively offered on any digital property. We can work with those to sort of set the timing on however many seconds of folks are on that page, and they can dismiss it or they can engage with the coach, or via a URL in any customer communication. Here it's shown on a snail mail credit decline letter. All ways to engage with the coach. And remember, it's turnkey. We can literally get these up and running in a matter of hours. What are the results we're seeing with consumers as they go through the coach? GreenPath has had this running on its website for a couple of months now. We are seeing very positive feedback. So 87% of those that go through the coaching experience value it, based on the question you saw it was in the demo. We asked them. When they get their action plan, 78% of them view their action plan as achievable. Just as a little factoid about the state of financial wellness, 50% of those that we're coaching have a credit utilization greater than 70%. And one, just skipping down to the bottom, one other point that's really interesting is this is a qualitative judgment of those of us that are reading the comments that people are entering into the coaches. It seems like the users are suspending disbelief. They're very polite to the coach, the way they're texting and inputting comments. You almost feel like they're forgetting they're dealing with a bot just because of the nature and tone of the comments they're making. We're getting a great reception in the marketplace. We've got 47 credit unions and banks piloting the coach. From these folks or these institutions are from all over the country, and getting some best practices and learnings as well of how to engage consumers to engage with the coach. So hopefully we've gotten you excited, and we would like to make an offer to anyone who's interested that you can engage in a no commitment trial for the virtual coach. You could experience it for as long as you want. As I mentioned, implementing it is super easy. Just post those links on your digital properties or in your communications. We'll help you collectively. GreenPath and eGain will help you implement it and figure out ways to engage your consumers. And you can stop at any time, although based on our early adoptees, we're finding folks get the business side really enjoy the coach and are seeing lots of value from their consumers using it. So now I'll just shift gears real quickly, just tell you a little bit about the companies behind this, a little more detail so you can understand the depth and the technology that goes into the solution. So eGain, we'll start with explaining eGain, has been around for over 20 years, based in Silicon Valley. And our history is in omni-channel customer engagement solutions. We use artificial intelligence. We're one of the early pioneers in AI and sort of knowledge management, analytics, sort of at the core of everything we do. And we're primarily a B2C company supporting large-scale digital customer communication. We are a global company with big brands that you'll recognize. Financial services and insurance is our biggest vertical. So lots of experience supporting banks, credit unions, and insurance companies. Like every technology company, we have the thought leaders constantly reviewing our solution, and we consistently score very high ratings from the folks like Gartner and Forrester. Just a little bit more about our solution. What we like to say is we are sort of a single platform that enables a company to turn on any digital communication channel using AI and knowledge at the core, so that there's this one source of truth. So whether a call center agent uses our agent desktop tool, which is one of the circles there, or a consumer uses a chatbot experience, they all get the same knowledge via the eGain solution. And then our core solution also for these chatbots, social, et cetera, all has APIs that allow us to easily and quickly integrate into existing solutions such as CRM systems, telephony, et cetera. So that's just a little brief background on eGain and our roots. And basically what we've done with the virtual coach is taken this history and these core capabilities and stitched them together in a unique way, where again, you have sort of that knowledge at the core, which is the GreenPath advice. You have the chat-like experience, which Mike showed you in the demo, and then you have that ongoing messaging capabilities to nudge them along. So it's just combining this history that we have and putting it together in a new use case. So now over to you, Rick, to talk a little bit about GreenPath.
Yeah, real quick, just a couple things. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. Some people aren't aware of that. And our core service is engaging with people one-on-one to help them improve their financial wellness. And we do this at scale. These are deep conversations, helping somebody walk through their options, truly understanding their financial situations, helping them make informed decisions. These are deep conversations, like 60 minutes or so. These aren't 15 or 20-minute conversations. And we cover everything a person is dealing with, whether it's debt, credit, foreclosure, prevention, student loans, home buying. We are very holistic in that way. And if people have credit card debt, we do have an option that can help them repay creditors at lower interest rates. So collection activity stops, penalty fees are waived, interest rates are adjusted, usually in the 6 to 8% range, maybe 10%, maybe as low as 0%, depending on the situation. And, again, we do this at scale. Every year we counsel more than 200,000 households. I think last year was 220-some thousand. We're currently paying down debt for more than 45,000 people. Last year, through us, people repaid about $240 million in debt. So we've been doing this a long time. And I would just say Evan has a white paper. He'd be happy to send you if you're interested. You can just shoot him an email. But if you're interested in learning more about the virtual financial coach, please reach out to either Evan or myself. Our emails are listed here on the last page. Evan, anything else you want to wrap up with?
Yeah, welcome. I've been working in the financial wellness space, previously at a bank and now at a technology company for over 5 years. Got a lot of experience, a lot of scars. If any of you are passionate about the topic and just want to continue the dialogue, I'd welcome those types of emails and conversations as well. So with that, we'll see if, Pat, if there's been any questions that have been submitted.
Thank you both. That was a great presentation full of great insight. Now we're going to do the Q&A segment. We invite those of you listening to use your chat window on the lower left corner of your screen to submit your questions. And we do have a few questions in already. The first question is, what do you see as the most common hurdle that keeps financial institutions from more broadly delivering financial advice to all of their customers?
Hey, Rick, if you don't mind, I'll start. I kind of experienced this firsthand a little bit in my banking experience, and then certainly I'll turn to you to add anything that I'm missing. It's a great question, by the way, because when you look, most banks and credit unions in their missions or values, they all talk about things like helping people be successful or achieve their financial goals, yet it's hard. And I think a number of things come to mind. One is, no one owns financial health, financial wellness in an organization. Few organizations set up teams like that, but it's something that no single executive owns. And so that creates a real headwind. Another thing that's super hard is it's hard to know when you're making progress. Are we truly helping our customers improve their financial wellness? And then similarly, it's really hard to determine the value the economic value that you're bringing back to your institution when you do it. And combine those two factors with the fact that the most common one, or one of the ways you can do this, is via your team members doing guidance, providing frontline guidance. Well, that's expensive. We already showed you in our talk that sort of the digital solutions, the tools and whatnot that are popular don't work. And so it can be expensive. And then another piece that gets really hard, that is a roadblock, is the compliance risks. We sort of alluded to that. When you give guidance, if you get it all personalized, the compliance department it gets worried. And so put that all together. Actually, one more thing comes to mind too. It takes ongoing engagement to make progress, and there's not a lot of solutions that allow you to sort of stay engaged with the consumer to help nudge them along and move them along on the journey. So put that all together, and I think organizations aren't quite sure how to move to improve financial wellness. Rick, what would you add?
Yeah, no, I think you covered it pretty well. I usually say it's complexity, cost, and compliance. It's not a program you can roll out and then in a year say, well, we either succeeded or we didn't. It requires long-term financial commitment. The ROI can be fuzzy. So, there are good reasons why companies aren't trying to do this themselves.
Okay, we do have other questions. Hang on just one moment. Okay, our next question is, do the sponsoring banks get data on usage patterns and consumer results from the coach?
Yeah, this is Evan. I'll take that. Yes, they do. You get the sort of full out-of-the-box reporting, journey, what we call journey analytics. So how many people use the coach? It's at a macro level. It's not individuals. How far through the journey did they go? What path did they take? Are they making progress on their action plans? And so if you think about it, some of the banks and credit unions that we're working with now are getting really excited about that data, because it starts to give you a really good window as the volume of coaching experience grows into what are the struggles of your customers? What are the topics that they care about most? Because you see which coaching paths they go down. And it comes weekly, it's out of the box, does not require any sort of work on the client's end to make that happen.
Okay, our next question is, I can see value in the virtual financial coach recommending products. Can it do that?
So another good question. I'll take a crack at that since it sort of deals with the technical part of the product. It does. It will. It's on our roadmap for Q2 of calendar year Q2, but we have a principle in it, which is, we don't want to pollute the quality and the integrity of the advice. And so the product recommendations are done when it makes sense for the advice flow. So a good example of that might be if we're talking about sort of find the money to the customer's goal is to set up an emergency savings account. That's a great time to ask the customer, well, do you have a savings account? And if not, why don't you open one up with your XYZ bank? Another one is for a credit decline around a mortgage. We'll know that from the context and the referral and the conversation with the coach. And so once the customer has hit their down payment deposit amount and their credit score target, we'll refer them back to the bank or credit union that sent them over to make sure that it's a full cycle and the product sale happens.
Okay. I just want to remind attendees that to use the chat box in the lower left-hand corner to submit your questions. Okay, and our next question is, how does GreenPath handle customers that are referred to your team by the coach?
Well, the way we handle it today isn't the way we're going to handle it 6 months from now. Today, we're still sort of in a, in more a basic mode. Today, we're going to know that phone call comes in from the coach. So the counselor will ask some leading questions. And the thing we don't have today is data transfer, so we won't know what the user has gone through and what their journey has looked like. We do anticipate adding that in the future, though. So, initially someone decides they're going to call in, we get some very basic information from them, and then as quickly as we can start in on finding, what has led them to the call, what they're looking to do, get an idea of their goals and their current situation. One of the first things that we do with their permission is, with a tap of a button, pull their credit report in to soft pull, but it does enable the counselor to see their debt situation, so we don't have to go through the process of asking them all about their debts, and that's more data collection rather than counseling and coaching, and we want to spend as much of our time as we can counseling and coaching. So they will leave that initial interaction with a personalized budget, a personalized action plan, and again, they would expect to probably be on the phone. It's not always an hour, but we would go into it expecting an hour of their time, knowing that it could be, more like 40 or 45 minutes.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you both, because we're going to conclude the Q&A. But I'd like to thank both Rick Balabreski and Evan Siegel for great answers. You both had great answers to the questions, and it's been such an informative presentation. Okay, all of our attendees, please keep an eye on your email for a link to the on-demand version of the webinar. And I hope that everyone has a great day. Thank you so much for joining us.